So there's a weird thing about climate education in general, and that is that if you start talking about tipping points or these big system truths, very often people say, well, you have to be careful because, we can't depress students, and, this is a bit too negative. And let's just take Gandhi as an example to think this through. What would happen if we retracted or stepped away from difficult truths in general? What does that look like? Well, you certainly wouldn't have independence. Martin Luther King, the feature in the Climate Academy student book on social tipping points, that would have never happened. The bus boycotts would have never happened. The salt marches would never have happened. So why is it different for climate change? In history, do we not do Hitler and the Holocaust because it's difficult and depressing? Of course not, because there are critical truths about fascism and the human capacity to commit atrocities, which is important for us to understand in terms of our future civilization. So this idea that you have to be careful, you have to crop climate education down to sort of bite-sized pieces which are like digestible for children so that they don't get upset, that's just absurd. Not only is it absurd, it's not satisfying. Humans, we're Homo sapiens. We are interested, we're drawn, we are hungry for the truth. And the reason I'm saying this in front of Gandhi is because of his principle of Satyagraha. This principle of the truth being powerful, even if it's difficult. And he had a clarity about that. Everything that he did, he talked about the force of the truth. And if we are, what are we saying to our students if we want to reduce it down to these kind of Pac-Man, bite-sized pieces of happiness that they can only consume as children of education, like as consumers of education, if we limit it to just these kind of dots of climate change knowledge? No, we have to confront these systems truths. And in fact, I double down on that. And that is that in order for us to exit this crisis, we have to understand some absolutely fundamental things, not only about the climate, but also about the system, the background matrix to the human civilization, which is in play now, like capitalism. So Gandhi was prepared to ask the blunt questions about British colonial rule, and we have to be prepared to ask the blunt questions about how close we are to tipping points, how close we are to spending those carbon budgets, and ask the blunt question about capitalism, which is essentially the thing which is driving everything. Now, of course, the answers to these things are not simple, but humans, we're okay with that. And in fact, to finish, there's something about the human condition which is pulled by this sense of purpose. And if we only think about the humans in terms of happiness and sadness, like in utilitarianism, this ethical theory by Jeremy Bentham, is an ethical theory which says, yes, the greatest good to do, the moral good, is always the thing which makes most people happy. But by elevating happiness to this kind of Pac-Man level of moral priority, you're missing out on what actually drives human beings. We are creatures of purpose. We're creatures that enjoy pursuit, enjoy hunting the truth, whether that's scientific truth, whether it's a social project. We are creatures of purpose, and that is much deeper than this superficial happiness that we might get from, like, in a sense, as consumers. So the Climate Academy is committed, like Gandhi, to this notion that the truth is powerful, and powerful not just in a transformative way, but powerful in this kind of nourishing way as a human being. And if we warn our children away from the climate crisis by always reducing it to simple, limited actions, to not presenting the full truth, that is a catastrophic road to go down, not just because we're walking blind into a minefield of tipping points, but because it's not what we are as human beings. We've always overcome these challenges. So in India today, to finish, last week was Indian independence. So Gandhi, by just being committed to these simple truths, having a moral clarity about it, having a clarity about what really mattered, and working through difficult, I mean, he was in prison so many times in his pursuit of what was important. But in the end, India got independence. They celebrated their Independence Day here. And all of that would not have been possible without this man. All of that would not have been possible without a commitment to the truth, even though it is sometimes difficult. The truth is beautiful.